Heavenly Father,
Divine Mother,
Divine Mother,
friend, beloved God,
friend, beloved God,
Jesus Christ,
Jesus Christ,
Babaji Krishna,
Babaji Krishna,
Nahiri Mahashaya,
Naviri Mahashaya,
Swami Shri Yukteswar,
Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guru,
Paramahansa Yoganandaji,
Paramahansa Yoganandaji,
saints of all religions,
saints of all religions,
beloved Swamiji,
beloved Swamiji,
we humbly bow to you all.
we humbly bow to you all.
Bless us
Bless us
with deep attunement,
with deep attunement,
with deep self-offering.
with deep self-offering,
Transform us
transform us
from limited consciousness
from limited consciousness
to self-realization,
to self-realization,
and help us be channels
and help us be channels
to bring thy light
to bring thy light
to everyone.
to everyone.
Peace.
Peace.
Amen. So maybe what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit, each of us, and then leave some time for question and answers. Blessings, and one of the dangers of traveling repeatedly to many places is that we form deep and true friendships all over the world, and then we miss people when we're not with them. And so it's very, very nice to be here again with you all. So, okay, Devi's giving me the nod. I thought I'd talk about what it means to be a Sadhaka and a Sevaka a little bit, but not at all from the typical standpoint, not at all from an organizational sense. I want to talk more from the essence of it and the evolution of the soul. The soul doesn't really evolve, but say the evolution of the spiritual aspect of our nature until we reach the point where we're freed from ego, because the whole of the spiritual path is to get over the delusion of separation from God. And so that process of doing that has certain kinds of necessary, one could say, vital stages to it. And so we toss around these terms, Sadhaka and Sevaka, and what does that mean, and what are you supposed to ascribe to, and all. I don't want to go there. I want to talk about the stages of evolution that bring us to freedom eventually. And so in the festival, Swami talks about this. That's the story of the bird. And so first there's an energy, and it's also we don't have it here. Okay, it's also the energy of the joy symbol. But at first there's a momentum that comes from God. And then that momentum carries us a certain distance, and then we begin to fall from that, and there's the rebellion. That's the story of the bird. What else is wisdom except to keep? So it starts out, be fruitful in the gifts that we have given you. Share them with all. And then the bird begins to think, what else is wisdom if not to keep what is mine for myself? And that's the rebellion. And when the rebellion happens, then we fall from that state of grace. And then effort is needed to rise again, so the little bird is flying through storms and flying through the night and flying. So he's putting out willpower to rise again, until eventually he comes up, and it really ends with the redemption at the end, where the masters come, and it's through attunement that redemption happens. But when we come to this stage at which the soul, which is reincarnating over and over and over again, gets to the point where it is tired of being distanced, tired of being an ego, tired of the delusion, of being immersed in delusion again and again. When that finally comes, then we naturally begin to look for how can we get out of this delusion? How can we rise above the buffeting winds? How can we fly in the darkness? How can we rise? And when we begin to ask that question, that's when one could say that the conscious part of the spiritual path happens. Because before that, everything is part of that whole evolutionary process. But until the conscious asking and the willingness to do something happens, everything up until that time is more or less automatic. It's one could say we go through the conveyor belt of thousands and thousands of lifetimes. But once we get to the point where we say, what can I do about this? What is my part? Everything that I thought was light was but darkness, because we realized through experience that what we were seeking has not satisfied us. So then the advice is, look to the source of all power if you would conquer fear and weakness. Where can I find that source? Look within. And that's when we come to the stage of sadhana. Because the stage of sadhana, or being a sadhak, is that process of looking within. Master said that our path is a combination of meditation and service. Well, in fact, all paths are a combination. All true paths are a combination of not meditation, but some internal process and an external process. So some way of looking within and some way of serving. And these two things are vitally needed in order for us to break out of the shell of delusion, the shell of ego. And so for us, serve as the step of taking on sadhana, of becoming a disciple, of eventually getting kriya. So we get the tools of sadhana. Forget the, in a certain sense, the organizational aspect or even the technical aspect of it. Sadhana is meant to be that set of tools that allows us to connect to the divine within. And as we connect to the divine within, we connect with the divine beyond the ego. It isn't the divine outside, because the divine permeates everything. I've been reading a wonderful book about the earlier life of Anandamoyi Ma, but she went through a whole period of time, several years in her earlier life before her big public work, in which sadhana just happened through her body. And so she would go into a high state of consciousness if she heard chanting. They couldn't do a kirtan anywhere within her hearing, or I mean they did them, but she couldn't hear a kirtan anywhere going on in the village without essentially going into samadhi. And her hands would get numb, she would have to lie down. Gradually she would begin, postures would express through her, mantras would express through her, complete concentration, stillness of breath, all of these things just happened spontaneously through her. Now, she had a very, very special life, so it's not something that it'll do any of us any good to say, oh, I wish that would happen to me, you know. I mean, this is a very, very high soul. But the importance of it for us is that sadhana at a certain higher level of consciousness begins to happen automatically. Now for us, we need the teachings, we need the tools and techniques of how to apply that sadhana. For her, she didn't need that. She was that. And so never having basically education or reading or anything, she would start long series of Sanskrit mantras associated with a particular puja, and then it would be checked later, and that's what the Vedas said that should be chanted for that kind of thing. At any rate, that's not where I really want to go about her. What I'm saying is that the act or this expression of sadhana is natural to the soul. And so when the soul wants freedom, wants release from delusion, sadhana begins to happen spontaneously. Now, we may not think it happens very spontaneously, because it seems like we're the doer. That's one of the other delusions, is that we're doing sadhana. In fact, there is no we, there is no I, except the delusive we and the delusive I. There's only one. There's only one consciousness, which is God. And so the desire to do sadhana, the act of doing sadhana, the results of doing sadhana, is all being done by that who we're praying to. It's all one. But within us, because we're still functioning in this evolutionary process, in the delusion that we're separate, it seems that we're the doer, and it seems that we have to make the effort of sadhana. And so the master doesn't come, our master doesn't come and say, don't worry about it, it'll all happen spontaneously, you don't have to put out any energy. He again and again and again talks about our individual need to do this kind of thing. At any rate, so the practice or the state or the expression of sadhana will happen automatically and more deeply as the soul begins to release from the veils of ego, as that hypnotism grows less and less. Now, how does this hypnotism grow less and less? One is through sadhana, but the other is through service. Because we've got to work off, in the fire ceremony we offer the ghee, that's essentially offering sadhana. It's the offering of the heart's desire up to into the light of the spiritual eye. And so that's the offering, that's our sadhana, that's an outward expression of it. The offering of the rice is to burn up the karma that we have. And so service is the way that we burn up that accumulation of karma that produces, karma produces the whirlpools and the groupings of whirlpools, or the samskars that we bring into this life that hold us back, because that's the way we think. And so we have to serve in order to burn up those whirlpools and burn up those samskars in order to be free enough. And so the two work together. Sadhana and service, meditation and service work together, and they both reinforce each other. And then finally, for us, the act of discipleship, we should have a Sadhaka order, a Sevaka order, and something like a Chelaka order. The becoming of a disciple, the becoming of a chela, the becoming of the intense desire to attune with Master and with these masters. That's the other part of it, because it's really not our own efforts. Remember, there is no us. There is no our own effort. There is only the delusion that our own effort is there. But the more and more we attune to Master, the more and more we attune to the Guru, it's his consciousness of being beyond the ego that it's like as we connect with that consciousness, the grace that is endowed, imbued in that consciousness begins to flow through us. And the more we attune to the Master, the more we understand the consciousness of the Master, and the more we become an expression of the consciousness of Masterness. I don't mean just of Yogananda, I mean of the consciousness, Christ consciousness or Krishna consciousness. And so these three things, sadhana, which seems like self-effort, service, that seems like we're doing something, and attunement to the Master is really, as Swami said to us, freedom from the ego comes from longer, deeper meditation, the realization that God is the doer in everything, and deep attunement to the Guru. And so that's what we're really about. And yes, we have this outer structure and all of that, but that's all, it's all needed. It's all the energetic expression of the desire that our souls have for freedom from delusion.
Well, it's certainly a joy to be with all of you. And again, I want to echo what Jyotish said. Denise, I thought you weren't going to be here. Nice to see you. To thank you all for, we know it was, so many of you were involved in so many ways in making this weekend magnetic and letting people know about it. And I think it's going to be a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thanks to all of you and God and Guru. You know, it's funny, I've been at Ananda now for 48 years. I came to the spiritual path 48 years ago, and Jyotish 50 years ago. And increasingly, I feel like, I think I've learned something about what the spiritual path is all about. Not just for me personally, but just watching people, watching the processes that people go through, and the ups and the downs, and the coming closer and pulling farther away, and all of those things. And, you know, I think the challenge for all of us is how to keep the long-term intensity. When people first come to the path, they're all, oh, okay, I'm going to find God, and I'm going to meditate 5 hours a day, and I'm going to do this and that. And then comes the long middle ground. Well, I don't know if it's just some karmic thing for me, but the long middle ground it can go on as long as we allow it to, where we've lost the intensity. We haven't really left the path yet, but we're putting in our time in meditation, we're putting in our time serving, but it's not with that. There's a little bit of a protective shield up what did they call that in the spaceships? Not the force field, but yeah, I guess it is the force field that you. Yeah, well, it's when the rockets can't get you. So, but that's sort of what we do. We don't let the rockets of intensity of God calling us, we don't let it penetrate. We think, oh, but I have things to do. I have a job, and I have a family, and I want to do this with my life, and I have to make my mark in the world, and all those things. So we kind of put up a shield, and that initial intensity, it gets dulled. And the challenge for the long-term devotee is how to keep the intensity on a level without tension. I mean, the words sound alike, intensity and tension, but they're different. So intensity comes from letting down barriers, letting down defenses, making the very best effort we can do every single day. Someone told me they saw a sign in a monastery they were visiting that said, one's life should be a constant sermon to God. Use words when necessary. And that's really what it is. It's that constant flowing of our heart's devotion and appreciation and praise and gratitude to God. But the beautiful thing is, it gets more and more internalized and more a natural part of who you are. So that's what we need to be looking for, where there isn't any other self-identity except, I am seeking God. I love my guru. I want to be in tune with him. But without tension, do it with relaxation. Swamiji he did so much in his lifetime and in poor health for the last many years of that lifetime. But there was never a sense of tension. There was always, I know in the last years when he would come and visit Ananda Village, always at 5 o'clock when he was in residency there, we would always be home because the phone would always ring and he would say, "Oh, do you want to come down for tea?" And it would happen every single day. And we'd say, "Oh, okay, Swami," like it was the first time he'd ever asked us. And we'd go running down. And he was just blessing us. He didn't need us to come to tea. But we'd often walk in and he'd be sitting in his recliner chair, absolutely in bliss, totally relaxed, and then he would but he didn't make a big show of it. He didn't, like, "Oh, I am in God, I am in bliss." He just would be totally relaxed and in bliss, and then he would open his eyes, and he'd smile, and he'd say, "Oh, are you ready for tea?" And, make that switch immediately from being absorbed in God to being gracious to the people coming to visit. And there was absolutely no tension in his life, in anything he did. Now I'm going to write a book about Master. Now I'm going to do this. Now, it was that beautiful flow where the intensity had been internalized so much that he didn't need to make any show of it. There was just that the totality of his being had made that connection with the Guru. And so that's really what we're striving for. But it's so important to look at the resistances that each one of us have, every single one of us, the things that say, "I don't want to give that much. I don't want to be that one, achieve that state of oneness with God." And we use big words, and they're scary. Nirva kalpa samadhi. Well, can I still, answer my emails? But you just realize that the beautiful thing is, over the years, who you are becomes the intensity of your being no longer seems intense. It seems absorbed. So you make that transition from intensity to just absorption, where you just think there isn't anything else. And sometimes our life gets so busy, and every once in a while we stop and pause, and the phrase that goes through my mind frequently is, Master's words, "Lest in sloth I lose thee, I will find thee in activity." And we just think, wow, there's no wiggle room here. It's that full self-giving. And so for each of you, you all have your jobs, and you have families and children and so forth that you're dealing with, or whatever it may be, parents that need your care. But just remember that we all have karma, but that's just purification. think of your daily responsibilities really as nothing more than a fire ceremony. Putting in the ghee, you're putting in the rice. But what's real is the mantra behind it all, and that's God's vibration. Yesterday we had a wonderful blessing. Had a visit from a Tibetan teacher who's an assistant to the Dalai Lama. His name is Sogan Rinpoche. And he came and we had tea with him at the Hermitage. And then we went down to the Moksha Mandir, and he had a very nice vibration, very, very deep. He became a Buddhist monk when he was 17, born in eastern Tibet. And now he lives in Dharamshala with the Dalai Lama, and he was visiting America. So we went into the Moksha Mandir and we said, Rinpoche, could you chant for us? And nothing happened for a long time, and I thought maybe he didn't hear us. But then I think he was just getting very centered. And then he just started this beautiful, the Tibetan chanting is kind of more vibratory. It's not melodic so much. And it kind of, on a molecular level almost, you could just feel that vibration kind of just filling you. And then it was done, and he just said, I have to go. No, we're going swimming in the river. And they left very quickly. But it was the blessing of total absorption. That's what you could feel. And it's not what you wear, and it's not anything external, but it's the ability to say, without that intensity, I'm drowning. Without that intensity, I don't know who I am. But when that connection is made, and that's what we all need to strive for, don't lose it. Keep it up. And if you feel it's kind of other things are creeping up on you, then say, oh no, I need to maybe take some seclusion now and refocus this. Because that's really why we're here. And all of the different aspects of Ananda are just to help us to remember to stay in that state of heightened intensity in our search for God. And then little by little you realize, I think I'm through the middle ground here. Maybe it took me 35 years, but I think I'm coming out of it. I think I'm coming to the place where I can sit and meditate, and I just can go deep pretty quickly. And we all need to work for that. Keep it, so many lifetimes can go by, and you just think, well, I'm doing okay. And then another lifetime, I'm doing okay. And then another lifetime, and then how many lifetimes go by like that where we're just doing okay? Someone recommended a book which I've been reading called The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. It's not the old Tibetan Book of the Dead. It's written recently, and it's a very interesting book. But they put a lot of emphasis in the Tibetan Buddhist teachings on looking at the transitory nature of life. And one of the Rinpoches, the teacher, said, we don't know what is coming tomorrow. We don't know what's coming next, tomorrow or our next incarnation. Meaning, will we be exiting tonight, or will we wake up and it's another day in this incarnation? We don't know. And Rose was reminding, we were on the same flight from Sacramento up here, and we were chatting, and she was reminding me of that story that I guess I shared here of a teacher was giving a discourse, and one of his students said, teach us, I don't understand how one can be non-attached. If you love something, doesn't attachment come immediately? And the teacher picked up this beautiful crystal goblet filled with water that was on the table next to him. And he said, you see this beautiful goblet? You're afraid that I will drop it and break it. But I know that I will drop it and break it. Maybe not now, but at some point I will. At some point this will get broken. And so if we can, meaning to enjoy things but know that it will all be gone sooner or later. And so to try with that, seeing past the veil of delusion and seeing the real reality, what have I come into this life to accomplish? And that's to go deeper, as deep as possible as we can, into absorption in God. And we can't lose sight of that. We can lose sight of it. We can easily lose sight of it. But if we do, then it's just slogging through another incarnation. I remember the first winter I was at Anand, and I'll close with this, and then you can have questions. I went through a period of real discouragement. And I was lonely, I was cold, I didn't have adequate heating in my teepee, and it was a spiritual test. And there was some big part of me that was saying, leave, get out while you can, go back to what's familial and comfortable. And then there was this another part of me that said, you can go back, there's no chain on your leg, leave, go back to the world, but you know what? You'll end up here right again because it won't hold your interest. It's why you left in the first place. You knew there was something more. And so why waste all that time? Why leave, go back, get disappointed at the emptiness of the world and have to work your way back? Just short circuit that. And we often don't clearly leave the path, but we back off of the path. Why waste time? We've all been given incredible blessings in our line of gurus and master. Remember, Master said, when he saw the vision of Westerners and Autobiography of a Yogi when he was at the Ranchi school, and he said, Westerners, these must be Westerners. And then he said, I felt potential saints calling me to America. And he was talking about us. Potential saints. That's why he came. And so meet him with the energy that he brings to us. Match his energy, match his commitment, match his intensity to the full extent that you can. And if we can just do that, then the magnetism of the Guru will draw us. That's why he came. I will take on lots of your karma, he said, in that beautiful letter when he said, do not lose courage. I will take on lots of your karma and I will bring you to God. We just have to keep, like the wise virgins, keep the light burning intensely. And that's what draws the Guru and God's grace and ultimate freedom. So, do you all have any questions that you would like to ask us?
Manisha.
Some of us are poised on the verge of designing and building houses at Laurelwood. And so I've been thinking, and I've been rereading Cities of Light, and so I've been thinking about this whole process quite a bit. Hoping to move through the process with this uplifted a consciousness as possible. And it occurs to me that it applies not only to creating and moving into a new house, but also moving from one apartment to another or one dorm room to another, or changing continents every few months, that there's, at each one of those instances, there's a birth of a new home that shelters and inspires us, and that we hope will inspire others when they come in for satsang or companionship. And so I've been thinking a lot about what qualities to focus on. Swami talks about clarity in the home, clarity being a real central tenet of that. And I wonder if you can speak to that at all, even at the end of the day, coming back home, but just the the consciousness of creating such a space that is inspiring to us and inspiring to others.
I guess I get to have the first shot being the child of a nest of architects. My father, my mother, my elder brother, my best friend in high school, all architects. So, you know, if you start by meditating on the essence of the space and not on the form of it, you'll have a much better shot at it. So often in the planning stages for architects, they do what's called a bubble drawing. And so you start with a piece of paper and you say, okay, I need a kitchen. How big is that kitchen? So you draw a circle. I need a living room. Now, is that living room bigger or smaller than the kitchen? Oh, it's about the same size. And I need 2 bathrooms, so they're littler. And you do this bubble diagram. You get the bedrooms. And so there's no form. You're just thinking at this point about what functions do I need? And so start with the functions, but then before you start going into form, try to feel the energy behind that function. If you're in the kitchen, kitchens could mean different things to different people. For some people who love to cook, that's the center of love. That's the center of giving. That's the center. And so the design of a kitchen that is meant to be where a person spends a lot of time and where they basically are offering sustenance and nourishment to other people would take on a different design than someone who says, I'm hardly ever in the kitchen. I just need an efficient thing. I need to know where the microwave goes. I need to know where the toaster oven goes. And I need but think about the essence for you, but the energy and the consciousness that's going to be expressed in that space. And as you do that, there will begin to come automatically into the mind how the form expresses the energy. But if you start with the form, you're going to lose the essence of the energy. And if you start with the outer thing, as I say, coming from a nest of architects, my father's most feared client was the one who came in with 12 pages cut out from Better Homes and Gardens and say, kind of stick this all together and make a house for me, because it was all outward in form. So start with the essence, start with what the energy and consciousness of that space means to you, and how to have that energy and consciousness expressed at the highest level in that, because it'll be expressed differently in a kitchen than it will be in a sitting room or a living room or so on. And then obviously to make it all as offering to God and Guru, because really the home is built to have them inhabit it, and you get to live there as their servant.
I'll just answer real briefly, and then we'll take another question. You know, there are 2 things I would suggest. One, try to feel flows of energy so that the energy isn't blocked. Like there's you walk in and then there's a wall, just so people can feel that their spirit can move with ease and expansion. And that's a lot of what Swami talks about in the story of Crystal Hermitage. Have you read that? Yeah. And then, of course, maybe you've studied this, I don't really know, but people who work with the Vedic science of Vastu, it's really quite, it's an expression of yoga. It's based on the same teachings from the Vedas. So just, there are principles of how to align the house, how to create power centers where it's appropriate. We had someone, Vash, do our offices over at Ananda Village, the Sangha offices, and my little office was, in the corner was the Guru corner, and that should be, there should be something of gold there, the left-hand corner. And we had some Indian friends visiting, and as soon as they walked in my office, they said, "Oh, Guru corner," and they knew all about it. So anyway, just, there really is a science to it, and it's not just about architecture, it's turning into deeper flows of energy. So other questions?
Let me just touch on that. We might think that this comes from a mental or almost superstitious thing of, oh, that corner needs to be the Guru corner and so on. But again, referring back to Ma, when she was going through certain things, her body would turn and she would say, and so I was turned then toward the north in order to do this function. I was turned then toward the east. So her body, she didn't do it out of her own volition. The energy itself moved her. And so Vashtu has the understanding of how the energy wants to flow, and so that would be helpful too. Okay, other questions?
What was the name of the book by Ananda Marmon?
I think it's Mother
Reveals herself.
Mother Reveals Herself.
You spoke so beautifully about intensity and absorption, which is such a fascinating topic. Could you give 3 hints or 3 tips to improve absorption in the midst of intensity?
Okay, I'll just see what comes up. Try throughout the day to create rest points where, whether it's every hour, at the top of the hour, where you just stop and think about God, think about Guru, offer a prayer to Guru. So it's a process of constantly, gently moving the mind back to that focus. And then remember that we're not doing it alone. When we do that, we should also pause and feel the divine response. And so that's such an important thing. As Jyotish was saying, quoting Swami, God's the doer. God's the one. God and Guru are calling us back. And so we have to remember, I'm here, Master. Let me feel your response. So throughout the day, make periods of time where you call, but then listen for the response. And then on other times of the day, remember Swami says, when you're going for a walk, try to feel like God's always talking to you. God's blowing to me through the breeze. God's barking at me through that silly little dog. God's arguing with me through that rude person on the bus. Always feel that's going on. The other day, we used to go for walks with Swami around his lower garden, and there were these little wild strawberries that would grow in the garden, and we would pick them and then give them to Swami, and he would eat them, and they really tasted like nothing. They tasted like little pieces of cardboard, but he would make a big, "Oh, that's delicious, that's delicious." And the other day, it was the end of a long day, and I was going up to greet somebody, and I looked down. This happened when I was going up to get Amanda, and there was right by the chapel there was a little wild strawberry plant with a beautiful little strawberry, and I just said, "Oh, Swami, there you are." So just to see God talking to you all the time, and then, so that's 2. Make points where you're reaching out and then you feel the connection. Then just generally try to see God talking to you through the beauty of a little child, through the beautiful music, through whatever it might be. And then you're going to have to give 3 too, so you better be thinking. And then in meditation, So this is something that I'm learning more and more. Deep relaxation. Just that's why, keep checking the body, the mind. God can only come to us when we put it all down. And so to have that absorption in the middle of intensity, we need to experience it in stillness and then carry that with us all the time.
Okay, listen to Devi, listen to Devi, listen to Devi. That's 3. I would say find something in your meditation. So I'm going to talk on absorption, being absorbed. Find something in your meditation that is innately attractive and fulfilling to you. It might be, honestly, for me, one of the most attractive aspects of meditation is for me trying to see light in the forehead, in the spiritual eye, and so I can get actually absorbed in that process. Absorption to me means you get focused enough so that there's complete forgetfulness of self in whatever that act is. And so that's for me, but it isn't only for me. That's one of the most attractive things. But the second Kriya, you can get absorbed in that. You can get absorbed in a chant. You can get absorbed in trying to feel the breath. There are 100 things, but find something in your sadhana that absorbs you to the point of self-forgetfulness, and then hold on to that and keep repeating it, because it'll grow deeper and deeper. So that's one point. Second, I would say find some activity that you become self-forgetful in it. Often it's something that's creative. For you, it might be music. You might completely forget yourself in playing the cello. I might completely forget myself during painting. Devi might completely forget herself in cooking or in gardening. But find something that is innately enjoyable, that you can concentrate on, and that you get into a state of consciousness of complete self-forgetfulness during that. And then build that into your schedule so that you are allowing yourself the time to do that. Because there are so many things that we do that are not innately attractive or involving to us. So, when you drive, you're going to probably forget yourself that you're the driver, but you understand there's a different quality here where it's almost like your soul is being imbued into something. So that's the second point. The third, I would say, is to establish first a habit pattern and then imbue that habit pattern with true inner devotion and intensity of carrying on a constant conversation with Master, or not constant, but a very regular conversation with Master. So if you're, at first it seems a little bit artificial, but Master gave us the whole technique, one might say, of affirmation. So first you affirm something, and eventually, by taking that deep enough, you become, you get into the true understanding or consciousness of that affirmation. So at first it may be a habit pattern of every time you see a photo of Master, to actually stop and make a connection with Master. Or it might be ritualistic of making sure that you always begin a meeting or a connection with the prayer. And you may not even be thinking about the prayer when you're saying the prayer, the mind is somewhere else. But it might begin with kind of ritual, but if you keep it up, it will grow deeper and more sincere until there really is a sincere, meaningful, deep, daily, I can't say constant, but nearly constant conversation with Master, to the point where when you wake up at night, your mind will be on Master. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you'll think of is Master. But you have to build that habit pattern until it's like your outer self becomes absorbed into the inner reality of that habit pattern. So that's 3 from each of us.
So I think we'll end now because we are, but
Many miles to go before we sleep.
but I would like all of us to stand before we close, and let's send blessings to all the people who come tomorrow night. Many new people are coming, and then people who have been part of our work as well. But let's just visualize Master's blessings, Master's light, filling the room where we'll be at tomorrow. This hotel is where Master had stayed, so his vibrations are there already. And feel that every person, visualize every person who comes is imbued with that light, uplifted in that light. And the different speakers who will be sharing, may God's light come through them. And the singers, everyone involved in serving there, may we all be channels for Master's light. And may that light, visualize it spreading beyond the room, beyond the building, throughout Portland, throughout Oregon. That light spreading further and further along the rivers of light that Master established in this country with his campaign so many years ago, filling this world with divine light. So let's rub our hands together and send that light for tomorrow and into the future. Oh.